Hello, Charles. How are you?
Hey, Megan, good. How you going?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us here. People are just heading on in from the last session. So thank you so much for joining us. And you have the privilege of just having the stage here. I'm really excited to be able to dive in deeper here and to allow you to dive in more on the, the onboarding process, what we can do to improve it. So let's just, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about you and what your business is all about before we dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm the founder of Vesta. We started the business several years ago when we noticed a problem in the market with merchants struggling to get product data online, particularly merchants who stock sort of several thousand or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of SKUs. And yeah, really just saw this problem with product data and vendor onboarding as an area that merchants could use a lot of help in. And that's really where we've specialized since then.
Awesome. So obviously you're the expert in this field. So to just kind of start from the basics, can you tell me what is vendor onboarding and why is it important?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess, different people have got, different terms for it. But when we talk vendor onboarding, we're really talking the process of working with your manufacturers and suppliers to get all of the product data that you need in order to create full listings on your e-commerce sites. It's generally, it depends a lot. Like obviously, if you're creating your own brand, or you're manufacturing your own product, you may create your own product content. But for those who are sourcing product from other brands, manufacturers, as I said before, it's really that process of helping those brands get their product data on your website so you can sell their product.
Great. And can you share me, what are retailers currently doing with this process and what are kind of the, common problems or, where is it broken?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess when we walk into businesses, typically what we see is that they're using a lot of manual labor to solve this problem. They're often just receiving spreadsheets or Dropbox folders from their manufacturers, if they can get that far, and having to kind of manually manipulate those files and upload them to their e-commerce site. Or alternatively, they may be being forced to just go to the manufacturer's website and manually copy and paste product data off there. And that's a big part of the reason, why we talk about it being broken. One, there's often way too much manual work, in many cases by both parties, both the merchant and the manufacturer, in that it sort of becomes this power struggle really between the manufacturers and the retailers, where the retailers may end up creating some sort of template where they ask manufacturers to fill it in, or the manufacturers just send out generic content that the merchant is then expected to somehow take and convert into whatever e-commerce platform they use. And we talk about that process being broken because it creates a huge amount of friction, really. And it's friction that ultimately ends up meaning that the merchants don't get the product data they need half the time. Or if they do, they end up having to, as I said, put a huge amount of time and effort into getting that product data in a state where it can be loaded to their e-commerce sites. And on the flip side, when you look at it from the manufacturer's perspective, they're often sitting there being hounded for this product information so much that the more friction you add in the process, the less chance there is you actually getting the product data you need.
For sure. And I mean, it just makes it harder for people to work with you, adds more time, money. I mean, it's just kind of negative all around for adding this extra.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So these obviously are big challenges, and anyone listening obviously knows that these are things that need to be addressed, of course, if this is happening. But how can how can a brand or company go about solving these challenges?
Yeah, so at Vesta, we talk about three things. We talk about collecting, cleaning, and connecting. And it's really, if you break it down into its simplest form, it really is three different stages that you have to put a bit of focus on in terms of how to solve this problem. So if we start at the collection side, it's really about the process you go through for actually getting access to the product data to start with. So how are you going to onboard vendors? How are you going to promote to them why they should even be on your website in the first place? And then promote to them how you are going to effectively make their life easier, in terms of that you're not going to add all this friction into the process. That's going to mean that A, they can get their product data onto your websites quickly, and B, that their brand is going to be represented accurately, because that's obviously a big concern for manufacturers as well, or brand owners, is that you are representing their brand, and then if they make changes, they can very quickly and easily have those changes displayed on your website. The next step then is around what we sort of talk about as the cleaning phase, but there are other terms like data transformation or data manipulation, data normalization that people use. And effectively, this is one of the areas where we see merchants can make the biggest impact to their product data. Is the thing you have to understand, and often gets missed, is that for manufacturers, or brand owners, they want to provide product data as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, which often means they're just going to give you pretty standard normal data that comes out of like their system, however they can spit it out. And often the mistake we see is that retailers try and get the manufacturer to twist and bend their information to suit like the e-commerce platform or the sort of back-end system that the merchant's trying to load it into. So if you can take that data and you can have tools that manipulates and normalizes that data for you on the fly, so that every time a new file is provided by the manufacturer, it goes through the same process and comes out in a state where it's the way you want it and you want to display the information, then that really, that's a big part of taking that friction out, because they can just spit the files out of their system as quickly and easily as they can, and then you handle turning that data into something that you actually want. The last step then is on the connection side, where how do you then get that data publishing automatically through to your e-commerce platform? And that's an area where guys like Feedonomics, who I believe are talking later on today, those are kind of things they specialize in. And that just, if you can kind of combine those three steps to source the data, manipulate it, and then publish it directly to your e-commerce platform, that's when you can really start seeing the gains of setting up a proper vendor onboarding process.
I love how you broke it down in those 3 steps there to just make it so much easier to understand. So obviously, you laid out what is the issue, how to go about it, but now people are thinking, okay, well, I'm not an expert in this area. How can I delegate or use technology to be able to solve this issue? So what are your recommendations with that?
Yeah, so there's definitely, there's a number of tools and systems out there, depending on, obviously how much time and effort you want to sink into it. So at the very basic end, there are ways of setting up Excel scripts and that sort of thing, depending on your capabilities there, where you can be normalizing that data as it comes in. Then as you climb, depending on the size of your business and the number of SKUs, you may want to look at implementing something like a product information system, where this information can be stored and readily connected to your e-commerce platform. And then there are a number of tools out there like Vesta, where we come in and we can help you with that whole sort of vendor onboarding process, and the data cleansing side of things as well. So the data transformation, data normalization is often the sort of terminology that gets used.
So you touched on different ways on depending on how many SKUs you have or how large or big your database is with all this information. So can you dive a tiny bit deeper of what might make sense for a very small team that has, something that's even small, that's almost like a version of an Etsy shop or something where they might have like a small line of items there versus, larger scale businesses where they have a manufacturing company and all those things for tons of products?
Yeah, so it definitely comes down to some of the product data challenges that the merchants are having. If we look at the common challenges that we see, particularly at the moment with, say, COVID, one of the big challenges that we're seeing is that there's a lot of churn in product. So combination of products being discontinued very frequently, or new product ranges coming out to kind of be tailored to the kind of evolving market. And so depending on those, you may be looking for a solution that can handle very rapid live changes. So are you looking for a solution that needs to be able to handle stock changing every hour or every few minutes? Are you looking for something where prices are fluctuating very frequently? And then the other side of it is the actual product data. So what level or what degree of normalization has to happen to the data as it's coming through. So, another thing we see very frequently when you're trying to onboard vendor data is you've had this, amazing, pretty website built for you, and you've spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort into your product categories. Now you're trying to take all these like SKUs that are coming in from brands and trying to kind of figure out how to put them into your category structure. And so the sort of tool that you're looking for depends a lot on some of those complexities. Like you say, if you've got a smaller range, then maybe just looking at something like using Excel or Google Sheets and just bringing in an expert that can help you write some scripts and macros is a really good example. And then as you sort of climb up, if you're dealing with thousands of SKUs and a lot of data normalization that has to happen, then that's when you want to start looking at a more robust solution.
Definitely. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this information. For people who are, this is a great overview of the importance and awareness. And I'm sure some people who joined the session might have thought, they're thinking that, okay, the process is, maybe not as smooth as I'd like. And now it's kind of just raising that urgency and, ideas of how you can actually have a solution instead of it being something kicked down the road. So for people who are watching this, what do you recommend they take for their next step to improve this process?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously from our side, we're always happy to jump in and help and have a look and help provide suggestions. There are, like I say, other systems out there, product information management systems, which you can look at in terms of how they, we've all got sort of slightly different ways of tackling the problem. And particularly if it comes down to actually onboarding vendors and the process of getting in touch with them, helping get them onto your platform, then it's really about putting a lot of thought into considering it more of an experience than just I'm going to pick up the phone, give them a call, and hope that they send me something better than a PDF document. And so, the really kind of consider the experience and consider those three areas in terms of how you can optimize each one of the three steps to remove the friction from the process.
Definitely, and ultimately, this process affects all aspects of business, and downgrade to how you would be able to deliver your products to your end buyers and users. So it's incredibly important to really look at this onboarding process. So thank you so much, Charles, for taking the time to join us and share this great information. I highly recommend everyone to connect with him in the expo area in the booth. Please connect. He has more information for you. His team's there to be able to share with you, and I know that they have a special offer for information there. So please go to the booth to find out that, because there's a lot of great information there. So thank you again, Charles.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, fine. Everyone, the next session we have is focused on equity crowdfunding. So make sure you hop into that next session. I'll see you in a few.